Kevin McCullough.
To Times Square, Kevin McCullough, glad to have you with us. Honored to have Mae Mailman, who is the director of the Independent Women's Law Center. She just heads up all of the stuff they deal with in the legal arena and in terms of public policy. And she's helping explain this United States versus Skrmetti case that is going to go to the court in this next session. And if you don't think courts matter, this case is a good example of one that could, because May, sadly, the justices that Biden and Obama put on the court have been reliable, what they would call progressive votes against constitutionality, originalist, textualist type of understanding of the Constitution. And thankfully, the justices that President Trump put on have been faithful to that, at least for the majority of that. So hopefully we'll get some more common sense out of the court here. But what we're talking about here, and I need your legal insight on this. It's kind of a phony argument, because the idea that someone is being discriminated against because of sexual differences, when a drug is primarily used for the benefit of women for legitimate medical reasons, and it is not, I mean, there's not even consensus in medical arenas that surgeries and puberty blockers and cross-sex hormones are good for children. You can't find medical agreement across that spectrum. Why should politics or courts or anybody else be weighing in on this?
Exactly. So the left's argument here is dangerous in a few ways, because one, these sorts of laws are not discriminating on the basis of sex. They're discriminating on the basis of purpose. If you act for the purpose of carving up minors, that is a bad purpose. But if you act for a different purpose, if you're treating some sort of medical ailment, then that's an okay purpose. And laws, that the point of laws is to target purposes. This is standard behavior. But then the other thing is, to the extent the left is arguing that any law that affects men and women differently, it doesn't discriminate, but somehow, it affects them differently, that's discrimination, then that would just eliminate sex. Because you know what? Laws do affect the sexes differently because the sexes are different. Yeah. We are different. And so if you say that women have access to prenatal care, that doesn't mean you have to give men access. What is a man going to do with prenatal care? If you give men prostate screenings, prostate cancer screenings, do you have to give women that? No. And so that's this crazy idea.
I remember when the Affordable Care Act, there was a big debate over whether or not they should include abortion coverage for men. And I'm like, on what planet is that ever going to be needed? Like, it's just, but you and I can laugh about it, May, because we're normal. Like, we think in kind of determined, common sense, majority ways. But there are those amongst us, and sadly, they are elevated high in the Democratic and far left wings of politics, that will look at us straight in the face and say that we're the ones who are crazy for observing what nature naturally produces.
Exactly. And that's why our brief highlighted women's sports, because if your law can't affect people differently, then you can't have women's sports, because women's sports exist because women are different. We are generally smaller. We're generally less strong. We're generally less fast, like all of these things. And if anyone would like to say that that's false, like how many women are in the NBA? Okay. So laws affect women differently by protecting, by permitting women's sports. And if that's not okay, then there are no women's sports. So that's what we're really highlighting is if you were to accept the left's arguments on this and say, oh, well, these laws, it only lets one sex have estrogen and the other sex, you can't.
Yeah.
Okay. Laws affect the sexes differently because we are different, and that is okay. What's not okay is discrimination. You cannot take people who are similarly situated when there's no biological difference and just say, I don't like women, we're going to treat you worse. But discrimination requires treating somebody worse because of their sex, not this.
And that's why it's such a common sense issue. That's why people as conservative as Riley Gaines and as probably progressive in a lot of other ways that I would disagree with as Martina Navratilova have come together, because there's such an amazing factor on this entire issue, but it is working its way to the courts, and IWF is in the Supreme Court fighting for the cause of common sense, and May Mailman is leading that charge. And May, we're grateful for all that IWF is doing.
Which is iwfeatures.com. Kelsey Bowler actually is leading the charge there. So those are documentaries. Those are really short stories, so that you know, how is gender identity, gender ideology affecting people in my state, in my community? So iwfeatures.com, if you just want to learn, you just want to watch some videos.
That's
super easy.
That's a great tip. iwfeatures.com. May Mailman, thank you so much.
Great.
Stick around for more of That Kevin. Next, That Kevin Show with Kevin McCullough.